What's up, turf nerds? Who's ready to backlap? What's up, guys? It's Andrew at Real Rollers. Today, we are finally doing something you guys have been asking for a really, really long time. We're finally going to backlap and adjust the reel on a Tru Cut mower. This is the mower we're gonna be doing it on today. So why are we doing this? A lot of you have been asking for this, and it seems like there's some weird information out there about how to do this. So we wanna walk through every step of it with your mower right in front of you so that you know what to do. Let's get started. All right, guys, so just want to go over a quick list of all the things that we will need to conduct this backlap. We've got some optional items right here, and we have some absolutely required items. The first thing that is absolutely required, you know it, eye protection. Let's make sure we have some eye protection. The gloves, they're optional. Some people like to get their hands dirty. I don't. Feeler gauge. This is going to help us measure the distance between the reel and the bed knife. We'll get to that here in a minute. We got a spanner wrench. Now, if you guys don't have one of these, we sell them on realrollers.com. Go check it out. This is gonna make your adjusting so much easier. When you're doing your backlapping, you have an option. You can use a drill like this, or you can use a drill like this. So with the battery drill, you can use this machine, but ultimately, you're gonna be burning a lot of batteries. You probably also have one of these. You bought at a yard sale 5 years ago for 10 bucks. I would use this thing. They've got a lot of torque, they've got a lot of power, and you don't need to worry about replacing your batteries in the middle of your backlap. If you don't already have one, get a backlap kit from realrollers.com. You're gonna get 1 pound of 80 grit compound, your adapter, depending on what machine you've got, and a 2-inch chip brush to apply the backlap compound to the reel. You're gonna need a socket wrench or a box wrench. You need a 1/2 inch and a 7/16 inch socket or box wrench. Need some needle nose pliers so that we can take that chain off. All right, guys, here we are, PPE. It's important, right? So we're gonna move on to step 2. We're gonna go ahead and take this chain guard off. Using a 1/2 inch socket, take the front nut off of the chain guard. Using a 7/16 socket, take the bolt off the rear of the chain guard. Now we got to take the chain off. It's a pretty simple process. What you're going to want to do is find the master link. We're going to use our needle nose pliers and just kind of open this thing up, and then it'll slip off very easily. All right, guys, so let's take a look at this chain. One of the questions that I got in the Facebook group, and if you're not part of it, request to be a member in that group. It's really awesome. There's a lot of folks in there that know about Tru Cut mowers. It's just a great place to get advice and tips on guides on what to do with your machine. But one of the questions that we got was how to determine when your chain needs to be changed. And what I would say is the first thing that you want to do to maintain your chain is to make sure that it's well greased. If this thing gets dry and rusty, it's going to put an undue amount of wear on that chain as it's getting used. And when you have all that rust and corrosion, it creates a lot of friction, and that friction produces heat, and it's gonna wear that metal out. So make sure, first and foremost, that you're keeping the proper lubrication on your chain. Second thing you wanna look for is whether or not your chain is tight or loose. You might find that over time, if it's getting worn out and it doesn't have great lubrication, it's gonna start to stretch. It's gonna start to act a little bit funny, make a lot of noise. So you just wanna keep your eye on it. If you need a new chain, we now offer all the Tru Cut parts that you need. We have all the chains for the reel, the clutch engagement, the engine chain. We've got them all, guys. So go ahead and navigate to realrollers.com to find the chain. We've got easy guides there for you to determine which one you need. Now we're ready to loosen the reel and adjust away from the bed knife prior to backlapping, okay? So I've got a 7/16 inch socket here, and we're gonna just loosen the 3 bolts around the retainer ring 1/2 turn at a time. All right, guys, we're actually gonna do this to both sides, and then we're gonna start using the spanner wrench to try and adjust the reel away from the bed knife. So before you backlap, you have to create some space between the reel cylinder and the bed knife. If you backlap the way your mower is adjusted currently, chances are your drill's gonna burn out and you're gonna do some unneeded damage to your reel. So we have to adjust the reel away from the bed knife. This is where I might mention that you may have seen other people using a punch on the little notches here on the bearing retainer to adjust the reel. So you can do that. I have found that it's a lot easier to use the spanner wrench to get finer adjustments on the reel. So what we're gonna do now is use our spanner wrench to adjust the bearing retainer right here with those two little notches towards the back of the machine. And I've got some parts here that I wanna show you. Oftentimes, this is the pairing that you'll see of these two parts. And what you may not be able to see is that there's a little circle here, right? And that circle is where the axle rod for the reel actually attaches to the bearing retainer, right? That's where the axle is, right there for the entire reel. So when we go and use this spanner wrench on the bearing retainer, we're lifting the reel away from the bed knife. I just wanted to give you guys that visual so that we can more clearly understand the relationship of what's happening inside of the reel. Now that we have that information, we're gonna attempt to adjust the reel away from the bed knife. So I'm gonna apply a little bit of pressure here, and it's not quite going. So what I'm gonna do is loosen these 3 screws around the retainer ring one more time, see if I can get some action on the adjustment. Okay, so we're done loosening for the second time, and I think we're ready to adjust. One thing I want to mention, because a lot of people have asked before, does this special magical bolt right here do anything in terms of adjustment? In my experience, I would say no. Based on what I just talked about with the retaining ring and the bearing retainer, these bolts are all fastened into previously affixed holes, and they make no effect on the adjustment. Where the bearing retainer sits is going to make all your adjustments. All right, so we're finally ready to adjust. We've got the spanner wrench on here, and all I'm going to do is just give it some gentle pressure. Ooh, came up quite a lot there. So I'm gonna bring it back down because I know I don't want it too far off of the bed knife. Do this on both sides. Let's adjust away, and then we'll start to take a look at the measurements. So we're pretty much ready to lean the mower back a little bit in preparation for backlapping. And I wanted to show you something. This is new from Reel Rollers. We've got the Sidekick here. This is gonna help us prop the mower up and keep it really steady for us while we do our backlapping. All I'm gonna do is cut the fuel off. If you've got a fuel shut off, now would be the time to cut your fuel off. Anytime you tilt an engine back, you don't want the fuel running in the other parts of the motor. So we're just gonna set this down here, lean the mower back, put the Sidekick in place, and we're ready to start backlapping. This is where I wanna show you a little trick that I learned from a friend. This is called a feeler gauge. You can probably find it on Amazon for $2 or $3. It's been really valuable for me to have when it comes to backlapping. What we're trying to do here is make sure that the adjustment that we made to the reel is even from left to right. If you are uneven on your adjustment while you're backlapping, you'll be grinding an uneven reel and you'll have a problem down the road. That might cause you to have to go and get a proper new facement on a grind at a machine at a shop. It won't be something that you can backlap out. So what I tend to do is I'll take this little feeler gauge and I stick it right up in here underneath the reel cylinder and make sure that I'm touching all the way across evenly. So on the feeler gauge, you'll move up and down on the actual gauge to make sure that it's not touching at one measurement and that it's touching all the way across using a different one. And what I found is that my right side is just a little bit closer than the left because this size is fitting all the way across, and I've worked my way up on the gauges. I'm fitting evenly from left to right all the way over to the right. So I'm gonna make one minor adjustment to the right side to finish this up and we'll be even. All right, so I feel pretty good about the adjustment that I made. We're talking about thousandths of an inch, folks. You just want a little bit of space between the reel cylinder and the bed knife so that when you're backlapping, that grit can actually get in there without there being too much friction. So what I wanna do now is just tighten one of my bolts on each side to make sure that the reel is locked into position for backlapping. So this is where I'm gonna use this old beater drill. I don't wanna burn up my nice battery powered drills. It's just a lot of work for them. It's nice to have the constant power supply out of a corded drill. And I'm gonna use my Reel Rollers adapter. For this one, we're going with the P20 or C25. They have the same size of nut on the end. And we're just gonna attach it here and we'll start backlapping. This is 1 pound of Backlap compound. It's 80 grit. It comes with every Backlap kit we sell. We also sell just individual Backlap compound in the 1 pound and the 5 pound quantity. You gotta know that once you become an expert at this, you're gonna want the 5 pound quantity because you're gonna be doing it all the time. You're gonna keep those blades sharp. So we're ready to Backlap. We've got our drill with the adapter on it. All you're gonna do is get it right here on the side. And when we're ready, we're gonna start painting that compound onto the reel as we rotate the drill in reverse. And we're gonna paint this onto the reel from side to side. So I've backlapped for a couple minutes now. You'll notice that while you're backlapping, you'll run the compound into the reel and it'll make noise for a little while and then it'll get quieter and quieter. Just keep reapplying. I tend to backlap for about a total of 5 minutes. I just continue to apply the compound as the compound gets quiet. Make sure that it's being ground up in there. And if you know what your blades feel like beforehand, say for instance they're pretty dull, you should be able to go in and kind of move some of that compound out of the way and feel an edge forming on the leading part of the blades. So you can see here, we've got some good metal showing and I can feel a pretty good sharp edge right there. So that being said, we're gonna go ahead and rinse all this compound off and get this thing ready to adjust. So we just got done rinsing off the mower. I wanna mention something very important to you. Please do not turn your engine on and run this reel forwards. As long as there's compound on that reel, when you run the reel forwards, you're gonna dull your blades. You're gonna undo all the hard work you just did. So when you rinse, just leave it stationary and rotate those blades backwards manually while you rinse your blades off, okay? We've given a little pat dry to this, kind of taking the water off of it. We're gonna lubricate everything later. Let's go ahead and start readjusting this thing and get this thing cut in paper. So we're gonna grab that 7/16 socket wrench and we're gonna loosen that one bolt on each side of the retainer ring so that we can adjust our reel back to the bed knife. All right, it's yet again another time to use that handy dandy spanner wrench if you've got one, and we're just gonna readjust the reel back down to the bed knife. We're gonna do this very slowly and we're rotating counterclockwise so that we get contact between the reel and the bed knife. So I can already feel that we're too tight just by that quick test and adjustment. So I'm gonna bring it back just a teeny hair. Still a little bit loose, and we're just finding that sweet spot, guys. That feels a little better. We're just gonna work it from both sides and make tiny little adjustments. That was too much. Bring it back. All right, folks, so what I'm looking for at this point, and we'll paper test to be sure, but you're listening and feeling at this point. So as you make adjustments, you'll start to hear that blade gliding across the bed knife. And you're listening and watching that you're getting that contact all the way across the reel on the bed knife. And at this point, it sounds like we're in a pretty good spot. I'm gonna start paper testing. I feel kind of good about where we're at with it. So all I'm gonna do is take a little strip of paper and I'm gonna go from right to left. Doesn't matter, you can go left to right across the reel. So I got it cut in there on the right pretty nicely. Not on the left or middle, and certainly not on the left. So what I'm gonna do is adjust this side over here to be a little bit closer to the bed knife and see where we land. All right, guys, so I made my adjustment. We're gonna paper test again. Getting a clean cut on the left now. Getting a clean cut on the middle. And a clean cut on the right. So I feel good about where we've adjusted the reel to the bed knife, and I want to go ahead and set it in place. Now, I want to refer you to the owner's manual. We've heard some talk about that bolt magically adjusting the reel. If anything is happening with that, I'd like to think that the tension between the frame and the reel might dictate some of what's going on there. So we're going to paper test after, but the Tru Cut owner's manual clearly dictates that you should adjust by tightening one side first and then equally that same bolt on the other side. Then we're gonna come back over here tighten the next bolt, and tighten again on the other side. Do not tighten all three on one side and then tighten the other. We're gonna alternate from side to side, so here we go. I've tightened both sides down. I want to check my cutting ability one last time now that we're all tight and set in place. Cutting well on the left, cutting well on the middle, cutting well on the right. One of the last things that I'm going to do is apply some sort of lubricant or grease to the reel. So what I've seen a lot of people do is use heavy machine grease that they'll paint onto these blades. You could use an aerosol lubricant like WD-40 or aerosol silicone. What I like to do is use a natural cooking oil like this. And all I'm gonna do is cover the blades up with a little bit of grease to preserve that metal and make sure that we don't get any surface rust on the blades that we just sharpened. All we need to do is reattach the chain and put the chain guard back on. So let's go ahead and hang this up here. We're gonna leave ourselves a little bit of room to reconnect the chain. Hey guys, just make sure that when you reinstall that master link, the open side of the clip is on the back side of the direction of travel, meaning that the closed side of the clip is on the front side of where the chain travels. Chain is moving like this, so your closed side leads. You're gonna wanna make sure you adjust your tensioner so you have 1/2 inch of play in this chain right here. This one could be tuned up just a little bit, but otherwise I think we're pretty good. Just adjust your tensioner by loosening this bolt right here and move it forwards or backwards depending on your tension. All right guys, we've made it. We're at the final step. All we have to do is put the chain guard back on and we're good to go. All right guys, so I feel pretty darn good about what we did with this P20 today. I think it's gonna cut like a hot knife through butter. If you're having trouble with your adjustment, keep in mind that you're supposed to tighten your reel from left to right. I found that a lot of people are just tightening one side down and then the other side, and that seems to get things a little bit out of alignment. So follow these steps. I think you're gonna be really happy with the results. Keep in mind you can visit realrollers.com to find pretty much everything that we've used here today. In the meantime, happy mowing. We'll see you on the next video.